Hello, and welcome to the latest in the Somerford series of podcasts, focusing on a variety of cybersecurity subjects relevant to the region in the Gulf. Today, we are honoured to be joined by المدير التنفيذي لأمن المعلومات بالبنك Zand, the Chief Information Security Officer for Zand Bank, Hussain Al Khalsan. We also have James Astley, who is the General Manager for Somerford Associates in the region as well. So, gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Not too bad.
Ya Ustaz, thank you very much for your support for this podcast. We're very, very grateful for giving up your time. James, you're a regular podcaster, so
Indeed,
this is nothing new to you.
No, looking forward to it. And I'm looking forward to a different level of conversation. So.
Excellent. So,
Shukran.
our absolute pleasure, sir. Pleasure. So, I think I'll start off with you. The growth in cybersecurity leadership role in the UAE has increased and improved in recent years, I would say, from what we're seeing. What I'm interested to know in you, what excited you about cybersecurity? How did you get into cybersecurity in the first place? Was there an overriding ambition to understand security, technology? I don't know. Please, over to you, sir.
It is, yeah. So thanks, John. Again, pleasure to be here with you on this podcast. I think we've been talking about this for
a long time. A long time.
This
far too long.
Yeah. So finally, we are here. So to start with your question, right, the way how it started with my career. So I've been in the banking field for the whole of my career. I initially started in 2003. That's where I was an IT engineer, doing different roles in terms of IT desktop support, help desk, fixing laptops, computers, printers, and helping the users. And because this was part of my study when I studied business information technology as part of the higher colleges of technology in Dubai. Then it moved and I progressed into like server admin support. It's like, managing servers, installing, backing up, all these disks and
the foundations.
Staying late nights on the server room, which is very cold, right? So that's where then moved also parallelly into the network devices. So I was good at networking as well as the application and the support and server support. So later on, I think in the bank, the development of IT security as a role came up as a necessity, because I guess that was one of the findings of a penetration testing, because we had, quite serious issues.
Of course.
So you had to really have a dedicated team to take care of the security aspect. So that's where I moved into, and I was more interested into IT security. What made me interested in that, it's, I would say, the kid inside me, the curiosity. I mean, I was pretty young those days, right? So the curiosity about how things work and how to protect and how to ensure nothing breaks. But at the same time, I was breaking things at home, back home, right? So
much to the delight of your parents, I'm sure.
Exactly. So now I was fixing my own computer, sometimes burning things out, sometimes downloading purposely viruses and malwares just to see how things work. But at the same time, rebuilding everything from scratch. So again, this gave me really pretty solid idea in terms of how operating system work, how the hardware and the software work together, which made me really good at also troubleshooting problems when I was doing my, when I was practicing my job basically in the bank. So, and then this transitioned from IT security into information security. Back then in 2008, I would say. That's where the whole information security and cybersecurity started, right? And my goal is to be a CISO, and here I am. So that's
why was your goal to be a CISO? That because you had aspirations for leadership?
One is yes, and the second, I realized that it's becoming imminent issue, and I foresee that this becoming really important for every organization to have. And until that time, I think we realized the importance of information security or cybersecurity, but no one really was interested into really taking that particular role, right? It's not an easy role. At the same time, we know that if something goes wrong, your neck might be on the line. So, which is I was really ready for that, because that's what the responsibility I wanted to take.
And you landed at Zand Bank, and in many ways, Zand Bank is a bit of a trailblazer in the region, anyway, isn't it? Because it sounds as if there's a really, really good affiliation between your professional desire and that of the bank, in terms of stretching your own professional development.
I think the opportunity in Zand accelerated my career progression massively. The way how digitization accelerated by COVID. So this is what happened to me. So I think the opportunity that I got to build everything from scratch and be a CISO, to me, this is a PhD in becoming a PhD in cybersecurity, right? Yeah. So that where it led me into many different levels in terms of building the whole team, building the whole ecosystem, fully in cloud, born in cloud, fully digital. Try to solve problems that you had never saw before, with the regulators, with the data residency, with all these complexity that a legacy bank was hesitant to go to, where we jumped into it, right?
Yeah.
So that to me is a PhD.
And I was just going to say, for you as well, what you're seeing throughout the region in terms of that forward-leaning approach by organizations who are really keen to sort of, I guess, capitalize on the region's pro-business approach. Is that something you would recognize and see?
Absolutely. The Zand banks of the world, I think we're going to see more over time, and the regulators are starting to allow the development of this. And I think the interesting thing is you've just touched on the legacy banks, and actually they're trying to catch up, and it's hard, because if you have deep-rooted infrastructure, plumbing, networking, actually you're trying to modify and develop and change, but your core business is still here. Whereas actually the ability to do something from scratch in modern business is very rare. And I completely agree. It is almost like a PhD, because you have the ability to learn the lessons on the fly, but develop what you believe to be the future and what you believe will be mitigating future threats, but also developing the infrastructure and a network that will allow the bank to scale. And actually that's the beauty of a digital bank, that you can react very fast. You are very fluid. You can agile, all these terminologies that we hear. That's a very exciting thing that I believe this region will continue to adopt, because this region already is very aggressive for growth, hugely forward in terms of digital. And we know all the buzzwords that we all know in the region. But this is why I fully believe this.
I think most regulators are pretty much the same, aren't they?
Yeah.
Because of the nature of the business, and there are so many potential grey areas that you need to be demonstrating that sort of, that you're trying to reach 100% of what but actually they recognise that's probably unlikely.
But it's a journey at the end, right? So if it's a new area or a new domain, I think, it's a journey. You walk with them hand in hand to ensure that there is mutual benefit for both, right?
So going back to what you're seeing in the financial services industry in this part of the world, what would you say were the biggest challenges that you face and the biggest risks?
If I would pick the top three, the first one would be acknowledging that cyber risk is a risk. That's my top number one, right? The reason why I'm saying this is, I think until today, we hear our colleagues and security professionals having to justify why this is a risk, for example, or justify, their own budget or their own strategy to the board, and sometimes they don't even sit at the board level. So I think acknowledgement of cyber risk is a risk is number one challenge that I think this region is having. Second, I would say in the likes of advanced, like the APTs, the advanced threat, that's happening here and there. And we know the obvious reasons is the ideological, issues that's happening in this region. So it's a nation state APTs, which is, not something that you want to.
And this part of the world is surrounded by them, aren't they? Let's face it.
Exactly.
People who are interested.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's one of I would say, the second biggest risk. And the third is the emerging AI-powered, threats or attacks.
To mention AI, did it?
Yeah. So I would say these are the biggest risk, top three for time being, the way I look at it.
Okay. I'll come on to you in a second, but I want to pick you up on one point you said there about the acknowledgement of the risk. And I just wonder, do you think executives, I don't want to single your bank out or any particular bank, think more broadly that boardrooms understand the extent of the risk?
Again, I think in this region, and there have been a lot of initiatives and advancements, and I think, with no doubt, we have seen what Cybersecurity Council is doing, but at the same time, what Dubai government is doing. Having a cybersecurity strategy nationwide, which was really approved and announced by Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid, is key. But I think, again, the question is, why do we still have, problems, and why do we still have, compromises happening and breaches here and there? The main issue is, in my view, is being reactive rather than proactive. So I will pay attention and sign a blank check when I'm compromised.
Yeah.
But I'm not willing to do this when I'm not. It's like, if it's, if nothing happened in 40 years, why should it happen now? This kind of thought process needs to change. And I'm not saying it's not, it's changing. And I believe, many people are realizing that with what's happening around the world and, the impact that are happening. But I think it's still, we're not yet fully there. And I think that needs to change as a mindset.
And would you acknowledge all of those points?
I would, yeah. It's really interesting because awareness is a critical topic for many security professionals. And then the understanding of risk as well. And actually the ability to quantify risk. Yeah. That's a difficult measure. I think I completely agree. The boards and executives are getting more awareness. With awareness breeds inquisitive nature. And then that allows then questions to be asked to help quantify what risk is. But also risk is now defined in many different ways. And is it a number? Is it a scale? Is it quantitative in terms of the different measures that we now look at? So that makes it more challenging. And also the fact that there is now so much more risk and threat that's being brought into the world.
Yeah.
And the AI piece, absolutely. You think how quickly now things can be created. Criminals as a service. There's things now available, but people can go and be in a bedroom and download something. And if they want to go and do something malicious or outward, then they can do. The thing I think over here is you've got to also balance is the rate of growth. Dubai and the UAE is growing so rapidly that the infrastructure is growing so rapidly. So you're almost a little bit of cat and mouse. So we were saying earlier that you're trying to keep up.
You're introducing additional risk, aren't you?
Absolutely. But you're developing. And the rate of development is so vast that equally that's then going to have blind spots, and you're going to have different areas that or threats that you might not have considered, because actually you're trying to develop so fast in terms of the infrastructure and the business, which is the beauty and one of the most appealing things of why organizations are coming into the region. But then for security professionals, that then adds another layer of complexity.
Again, don't get me wrong, right? When it comes to risk and the way how board doesn't understand the risk, I think as a security professional, I think it's our responsibility as well, is to really articulate the exact, problem or the exact risk that we're trying to, to prove over there. Because again, we all talk about, as a security professional, you can't talk the same level, with your executive to the board. You need to know the, business language and talk to them to that language, how you quantify and all these kind of stuff. But I think there is a huge responsibility on the security leadership in terms of how do you really articulate and make them aware.
I mean, you then risk the board thinking, oh, here we go again. Nothing is happening. The CISO is after more money to pay for additional technology, talking about threats that we don't really see. They're not affecting us. So why do we need to? Is there also the possibility that they are becoming essentially immune or numb to the whole sort of process of sort of organizational cyber resilience, if you like?
Not really. Again, I think the idea is for them to think very, to make them think very, how can I say, in a very normal scenario that why do I need an insurance? I mean, think about it, that this is an insurance, right? Why would I pay an insurance for my car where I know how to drive? I'm not going to make an accident, right? So why should I? So the same question is here. I mean, are you not willing to pay an insurance for something not to go wrong? That's the whole idea, in my view. Yes, then we can talk about cyber insurance and all those, but I'm not even going there. But I think is to make them really think, in a layman language, is why this is important, right? And I would put it in this way, right? It's an insurance. Now, is it guaranteed that something doesn't go wrong? No.
Well, I was going to say about, because of course, I mean, I remember the floods, which you'll remember as well. I mean, who would have predicted that?
Exactly.
And, building in that sort of resilience.
Exactly. So it is the same point, right? So resilience is more important in terms of, how quickly you can get back, right? And how quickly you can adapt and be more agile to come back from a breach or an incident or anything that could go wrong. So that's the key. Something will happen at one point in time, and we know it's a technology. Technology fails you sometimes, and we know this, right?
People make mistakes.
Technology always fails human.
Yeah.
Now, it's a technology at the end, and in my view is that, okay, am I ready when that happened?
I mean, we saw the impact of the CrowdStrike.
Exactly.
Completely innocent, sort of the manner in which it was done, but the impact, the global impact, was incredible. Yeah. Who would have predicted that? Who could have predicted that?
Yeah.
That's part of the response, right? It's the resilience piece. I think any security professional that's worth their salt will say we're not completely ever protected. We do our best. We will try and put measures in place, and we'll try and do the best we can to predict and protect. But actually, the resilience piece is almost more important. When things go wrong, how do you react? And that's why we do lots of testing, and we've had lots of scenarios, and we have blue team, red team, purple team, and all these scenarios, because we need to have assurance that we understand if this scenario happens, how do we react to it? And that's almost becoming as more important now in terms of certainly larger enterprises.
Yeah.
Because the protection piece, we kind of know the protection, But what do you think?
I fully agree. But at the same time, you need to be realistic of your own capability, right?
Okay.
So yes, I can, but to a certain capability. Maybe I can come back and, be more resilient, but to that capability. Again, as I said, I'm not sure. I've not done it, and I'm not sure anyone has done it, is to have a conversation at the board level to say that, to what level are you expecting me to protect this particular organization? Is it against a 0-day attack from a nation state sponsored adversaries?
Yeah.
Because that's a whole different level, right? Or is it to a certain level that I can say, I can protect to a certain level where this is my capability. Now, of course, you can't do what you don't have. And it's important for me is to know your own capability, is assessment of your own capability. You can't overpromise that I can do this where you know that the capability is not even there.
Overpromising and delivering.
And it's more knowing, again, security. Number one, what are your critical assets? What are you trying to protect?
Yeah.
And then work back from there. We are all sometimes suckered into this perception of the new technology can do these multiple things, features and benefits and capabilities. And it's good to explore, as we were discussing earlier, to look at what is the new capability, but still fundamentally, what is my business?
Yeah.
What does my business need to do every day? Okay, so it's transact. So I need to be able to allow transactions to flow. Okay, how do I ensure that happens safely? And how do I ensure my end users have a secure, positive experience?
Still able to function. I mean, that's critical, isn't it? I mean, we were talking with the region's largest payment provider the other day, and actually he was saying, the CISO was saying, how very often it's easy to forget that there are people at the end of the transactions that his organization are processing.
Yeah.
And if they don't get it right, there is a risk of life or death, potentially, if someone can't get tablets or something or whatever it is. And sometimes it's easy to forget that. And I guess in the financial services industry, you're in the same sort of space to an extent, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, again, think about, big corporate.
One of the other risks you mentioned, one of the other factors you mentioned was AI and the evolution of AI as we're seeing. I just want to dig into that, of course.
Yeah.
What is your perspective on it, and how it is sort of being used to essentially as another threat vector to and introducing additional risk? I mean, perhaps just to sort of illustrate the point, in the UK recently, we've had some very high profile ransomware attacks that have been attributed to AI generated sources. And I just wonder what your thoughts are on all of that.
So Gen AI is a brilliant technology, right? And my view is these are opportunities that could really massively change the way how either people do their job or how organizations also deliver what they are supposed to. So AI has really extremely, I would say, potential in every means and ways. So I think the use cases that you can think are endless when it comes to Gen AI. And my advice is to urge all organizations to look at that as an opportunity rather than a threat.
Yep.
Because if people look at it that, it's going to replace my seat, then it's going to be a threat, right? So it's more an opportunity, but I think the human element is always key when it comes to certain aspect of how organization would look at it. On the other side, I mean, it's the good thing, but on the other side, we know that the adversaries will have access to the same nice technology to be misused somehow to their own advantages. The concerns will be looked at that side, where how do I make sure as an organization I use the good technology against the same bad technology to ensure that nothing goes wrong. As you rightly mentioned, yes, in the likes of the whole deep fake and AI being generating, all these deep voice, deep fake videos, and be able to manipulate every system. I mean, lately I've read even an article that, a KYC system was bypassed by an AI generated documents. So that's to me is a fundamental change in the way how things should be relooked, right?
Yeah.
So today, the controls that I have, I need to really go back and think, would AI be able to bypass all these controls? The answer in some of them might be yes. Now, what are the alternatives? So I think the industry also have a huge burden in terms of to come up with ways that it's anti-AI kind of, or AI attack resistant kind of approach, right? So how would I, if today I have my, let's say as a bank, my onboarding process is KYC based on scanning an Emirates ID, and that could be easily bypassed through an AI, what is the solution? Now, definitely, I'm expecting and hoping that there are already solutions out there to ensure,
considering,
exactly that, you know, we do have the solutions that will or will protect against deepfake and, you know, and deep voice and all those. But again, I think is a holistic approach to relook at how things, because this is a game changer when it comes to the Gen AI, right? It's a game changer to everything.
It absolutely is, yeah. I mean, the very high profile case was the Hong Kong bank.
Exactly.
Where a deep fake was used to defraud the bank of millions and millions of dollars.
Exactly.
I mean,
this is
utterly bizarre.
This is one scenario. I've seen many scenarios that you know,
loads of them, aren't there?
that, you know, candidates have been passing their interviews, virtual interviews through, you know, the whole deepfake AI thing, right? So, yes, it's concerning, but at the same time, I think it's to use that as an opportunity. How do I use this as an opportunity to elevate my own, I would say, controls internally, but at the same time, ensuring that, you know, I solve the pain point or the problems that I have internally.
Yeah.
There's a couple different areas to unpack, isn't there? Again, the processes and the controls that we once knew, we now have to revisit them. And are they the correct controls? Maybe we have to look at new ones. But I'm firmly in the same position. You know, Gen AI is here. Like, this isn't going away. It's here. It's arrived. But it's the same as we've had over many, many decades. There was the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution, by its very nature, was a complete mind shift, whereby people who were on the production line, who had the one job of putting a bolt into a piece of metal, well, they were replaced over time with machines that could do that 4, 6, 8, 10 times faster. Gen AI is just allowing us to be quicker.
The natural evolution of...
We've seen this many times. Yeah. We've seen revolution and evolution over many, many times. Like, we're humans. This is by virtue of our nature. We're inquisitive. Gen AI has just sped that up. So actually, what we need to look is the positives and actually allow people to retrain possibly and to allow them to find their new path using Gen AI. But equally, in the same way that our adversary is looking at it to use it negatively, we need to be quick in terms of how we use it to combat and to stop this. And that does look at our controls and our processes. And it says, okay, well, how do we utilize Gen AI? How do we make sure we adopt it faster? Because it's here to make sure that we are stopping the adversaries and the people who want to be malicious and they want to do damage to organizations. And that's probably, again, going all the way back to the start. You know, some organizations have been around for a long time. That's going to be much harder. That's a harder and more challenging thing for them to do.
Because
of the nature, by the fact that they have they're very much bigger, and they have a lot of legacy controls, legacy processes, assets, systems. Often, if you go into a larger organization, perhaps you will try to find the one architect that knows everything about the organization, because that knowledge isn't always necessarily recorded as it should do, and it's sometimes you have to unpick and find the risks. So the quicker we can do this, I believe Gen AI will help with this. So we can use Gen AI to help us to do the discovery. You know, where this week in JISEC, you know, one of the leading cybersecurity events in the GCC region, And we've had some fantastic conversations with technologies that are doing exactly this. It's how do I use Gen AI to stop threats? How do I find out my critical assets faster? This is a positive.
Just wonder though about culturally introducing that change. Is that likely to be difficult? And if it is, how do you manage it within any organization? You're a modern, forward-leaning organization, but you mentioned the old legacy organizations who are introducing this stuff. It's going to be quite difficult, isn't it? If you have have an engineer who's been there for 30 years.
Yeah.
He or she isn't going to like change. Yeah. How do you do that?
When it comes to our organization, the way we look at it is that, leave the heavy lifting work maybe probably for the AI, and you should focus on the most important aspect of the business, right? So understanding the need of the customer, trying to build something for them, but, onboarding documents, fetching from emails, trying to check which trade license is expiring when, and, this is not the type of work you want someone dedicated to sit with this, where AI can take care of all this kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, writing a policy document, writing a process and all those, which is part of our daily work that consumes a lot of time of people in the organization. So the way we look at it is that we empower the employee with an AI-powered agents to ensure that they are more efficient on what they do, and they focus on the most important aspect of the business to deliver a better service, whether internally or externally to the customer. So this is how we look at it culturally, right? It's not about it's a threat and it's either you or the AI. No, it's more of this is a tool that will make you do 200% probably what you do.
But you still there still needs to be an element of management and oversight of what they're up to, doesn't there?
Definitely.
Surely. Because otherwise, it'll be like the Wild West. People are doing everything, isn't it?
And that's probably the bigger concern for businesses in terms of where data resides. How do we make sure that only the right people have access to the right
AI
data?
governance, proper AI governance.
Exactly. And that's part of I would say, the more modern challenge that I think we're going through right now.
Exactly. So I think the way to do it is, and my advice is not to really jump into AI and start creating agents left and right just like that, right? Sometimes I've seen even different organizations that they just for the sake of AI, they just
go for it.
Yeah, exactly. There's no proper use case that are really justifying the usage of the AI and how it's being used. So now, in my view, the first thing is to ensure that there is a right framework in place and the right standards in terms of how would I do it. And it should be very structured. How the information is going to be accessed. Am I going to train that AI based on my own data? Which data? Where are those data? And what are really the controls that, or in terms of access, that who should have access and how? So again, I mean, it's a simple thing where you build an internal knowledge base about all the policies, all the standards, everything that, someone could just simply chat with an AI and get all this information. But these are, let's say, internal information accessible to all the employees. But then there are different ways how to segregate these, information if they deem to be really confidential or sensitive. So these are the elements that an organization must start initially to say that this is the framework, this is the best practice, this is the data governance. There must be reviews in terms of how these have been practiced, but at the same time, an assessment in terms of, is AI giving me really unbiased kind of, opinion or answer? How do I really take it or not? All the attack vectors that you would think when it comes to the AI. Is it possible to make it hallucinate or not?
Sure.
And all these kind of aspects. Now, again, I think the service providers, especially when it comes to OpenAI and others, are doing a great job. But I think the adoption in terms of taking that and how that would fit the internal organization, making sure that it follows the right governance, is key. To make sure that you build the right base, and based on this you grow and address any use case that could be coming into
and
the
just
future.
On that as well, the interesting point is it can vary where you are in the world, because it depends on what network you're connecting to, your IP connection in terms of the route. So if I made a query on ChatGPT here versus maybe back in the UK, you may get different answers and slightly different variances. So these are different controls, and think about spoofing and talking about how you might be able to manipulate that. That's another thing that will happen. It's another thing that we have to consider. But if you look at regulators, you go back to the point of regulation earlier, regulators are here to help enforce the things we should be doing. They're the things that we should be doing anyway. And so actually now we look at potentially the role in security. AI has potentially given more ability for security professionals to have more of a voice, more control, because actually it's so important to the business. But hey, I need to make sure that we understand it and understand the risks.
Of course.
Yeah.
So actually it's an enabler almost.
Yeah. We all want a Ferrari, but do we need a Ferrari? So that's the question.
Very true. Very true. In my case, I end up with a Robin Reliant. But you're probably far too young to remember a Robin Reliant.
Okay.
How do you... I want to move on, and it's sort of really continuing on that theme, really.
Yeah.
It's about human error.
Okay.
Human error. I mean, we can introduce all of the various platforms to try and mitigate. How do you try and mitigate the risk to cybersecurity that human error allows? And I just wonder, continuing with the AI theme, is there a place there for AI to help in some way? Do you think?
I think yes, and I do have an idea, and I think I bounced it to a couple of people. So there's one example for a human error which I could think of when it comes to phishing emails. Everyone makes that mistake to click, right? And we know that no matter how much we really send awareness messages, talk to people, send them to training. Do all this, people still click.
Still happens.
Still happens. I didn't know I was on the phone. I missed it. Or, I did not pay any attention and all. So to me, this is, I would put it as part of maybe the human error element, right? Now, how do I prevent this with AI? I think it's doable where, again, you could definitely build an AI agent that is, let's assume, and let's take an example, build as part a plugin in your Outlook that will warn you if there is any phishing email and take action on your behalf. So the email will be auto-scanned by the AI. It will flag. It will inform your security team that there was an email that came in there for this particular user, and I took certain action, like deleted the email or quarantined it or even blocked it, right? And this is the same concept about how do I empower the people with AI to worry about the most important thing, because I don't want people to worry anymore about phishing email. I need to worry about not to click on this or not to click on that, and I need to check which address is coming from, and is this link spelling. Is this exactly this link legitimate or not? Is this domain exist? Or I think those days are gone. I think the AI could be of an assist here that could do all this work. And I think the risk is mitigated and the job is done. So this is my idea, and I hope I can achieve that. And if I do, I'll ping you guys. And
inshallah, you'll get that Ferrari.
Exactly. We'll present it maybe in some of the forums. And
the next podcast will.
Yeah. So again, my point is yes, the agentic AI could eventually help human not to fall into certain mistakes or risks by trying to really follow the right processes in place. Because what we expect human to think straight this way. What happens is they think this way. Now, I don't think the agentic AI will do that mistake. So now, because there is a reason behind it, he will do his job in terms of analysis, and he will act based on facts. Right? So that's the job, and it's gonna get it done.
Absolutely. What do you reckon, James?
I agree that Gen AI doesn't have emotion.
Exactly.
it does as it's told. In IT, a lot of time when you're looking at developing an application or even software for large-scale cybersecurity technologies, you're trying to think how the user thinks, or you're trying to think how the bad actor thinks. AI doesn't think like that. It just says logic. What are the facts? What do I know? What do I not know? Make a decision. And as human beings, and this is why good and bad, we have emotion. So we will think differently. And the decision we make today might not be the same decision we make tomorrow, might not be the same decision we make the day after. So that's the bit I agree. If we can give ourselves some controls, or we can put controls in place that remove things that we don't need to worry about, then again, actually, we can go and focus about how we develop the business, how whatever our job is, be it innovate, reduct, build, whatever our job is.
Yeah.
But that's the difference. I agree. Gen AI, it can't feel yet.
Right. Okay. So I'd like to sort of move on slightly to talk about skills gaps and talent shortages. And I just wonder, how do we address the challenge? I mean, we talked about earlier with Dubai and the region more broadly being pro-business, going through a sort of hyper-growth. That in itself is introducing challenges for businesses to try and grab the talent and grow that talent internally. What would your advice be?
So there are quite good initiatives that are happening, honestly. And if I specifically talk about UAE nationals, for instance, right? I think there's a great job done by Digital Dubai with the work done by Desk. I think is part of the cybersecurity strategy, Dubai cybersecurity strategy. There was a concept that was born. They created something called Dubai Cyber Innovation Park. Now that there is different programs in terms of trainings, and they really elevate these youngsters to be, either get into the cybersecurity profession, or even to be elevated to go into being a certified CISO, for instance. So I think they're taking these youngsters who are really interested, but at the same time, again, within universities here, what's happening is the cybersecurity is being added as a part of the curriculum nowadays, right? So there is this need of a cybersecurity professional that you can see that there is, certain initiatives that are happening, and they trying to shorten that skill gap when it comes to UAE nationals. I know you told me that there are not much UAE nationals as cybersecurity professionals, but
it doesn't seem to be.
But I can tell you, there are quite a good number of UAE nationals that are in this field, and in different industries, for instance. So I think recently I've met many, and yes, 10 years ago I could have agreed with you 10 years ago, but not now. I think.
And in 10 years' time, of course, the landscape will be completely different. Exactly. And there'll be loads of Mudir Tanfidis.
Yes. Now, I think the idea would be is that, yes, with the evolution of Gen AI, the question would be is, do I need a CISO?
Redundant CISO. My goodness me. So we've trained loads of them up, or virtual CISO.
CISO,
CISO as a as a service.
Yeah. So the I think the idea would be is that to what extent, right, the CISO role could be, let's say, be automated or being taken over by AI. I always say the CISO's, the majority of CISO's role is educating probably the internal executives and leadership and this. So, but at the same time, it's not an easy role. Where I always say is that you need to know all different aspects of the business of that particular organization to be able to really protect that organization. So with the Gen AI, in my view, the skill set gap could be filled big time. But at the same time, I think one day we're gonna all sit and discuss what are the jobs that the agentic AI could take over. The same that we discuss, surgeries nowadays can be taken over by robots, right? Operated by Gen AI, because they can do probably more precise work than a normal doctor without any mistakes. But at the same time,
they can work harder as well.
Exactly. But at the same time, it's like, oh, do I need a pilot anymore for an airplane to fly? So I think this is where I don't have an answer for that, but definitely we'll talk.
It's nice to hear your
5
thoughts.
years from now.
James, what do you think? What do you reckon?
You get to the point where you've got this pure utopia, right? Where actually there is no longer a need for work. That was part of the brainchild of AI going back 20 years ago, wasn't it? It was, if we can have the ability for robots and machines to do everything for us, then actually we can then just live. And there's books on this, and it's not a new concept, but it's quite interesting that maybe in our lifetime we may see something like this. But I do believe when you get to the point of, okay, if this profession is no longer needed, what is needed? And we will start asking this question probably in the next 2 or 3 years. And we will see people have to retrain, maybe diversify, maybe look at, how they approach things now. And, my wife, she's an accountant, and I have this conversation with her all the time. Much of her work is done on a spreadsheet. When will you be replaced?
I mean, maybe AI is going to secure itself. Why do you need CISOs anymore? Why do you need anyone to protect anything? Because it's going to protect itself, right? So that's the point. Exactly.
It's really true, actually. Yeah, it is.
I think because, again, if you go back, why do I need a CISO? Because someone is not doing his job, probably, right? In terms of building the right things or
because
having
there
the
are
right
people
solutions.
involved, aren't there? Let's face
Exactly.
it. But if you're talking about removing the people, well, you won't have that problem.
Exactly. So if there is an AI which is building a technology, it's going to be state of the art.
Yeah.
If AI is going to code something, it should be
perfect.
Inshallah.
But then, is security going to be an issue?
Yeah. Well, okay, maybe one for the future.
Yeah.
So we've discussed this the other day, and there's lots of studies saying that within the next 6 months, generative AI will have learned everything about the human race since the start. So, that level of knowledge, if it's already 6 months away from learning how we work, function, do everything, then we are very close to seeing the next evolution. What do you think, John?
Well, on that note, I'm not the one who's the expert, of course, James. I'm here to understand you two. And I think what it's been really, really fascinating to sort of get to understand you. I mean, of course, James, I knew you, but I think my last question will sort of really focus on you and what is important to you. So back in England, in the UK, there's a radio program called Desert Island Discs. And at the end of the program, they always ask the contributor if they had one luxury item to take on a desert island, what would it be and why? Zidi, I'm going to ask you first. What would your luxury item be and why?
Can I take my wife?
Enough said. James, over to you. That's probably the best answer. The best answer you could.
For me, probably, I would say a communication device.
Yeah.
But Yeah, if I would think harder, maybe it should be solar-based communication device. Yeah.
Good idea. Excellent. And I think we can all understand the logic behind that.
Yeah.
James, what about you? What about you? Now, clearly you'd want to take your wife as well.
I have to agree.
However,
it have to be my wife as well. The nuance to your question being luxury item as opposed to practical item. If it was a luxury item, and again, there was an ability to maintain the power source, it would be something that I could play music, something that I could listen to music on, as that's very important to me and allows me to think. It allows me to feel different things. So the ability to listen to my favorite music still as a luxury, but as a practicality, then I'd need something to be able to hunt and find.
Of course. No, just a bit of fun. But both of you, thank you ever so much for your time today. I think it's been great, really has been. And we'll come back to you in 5 years if you've still got a job,
sure,
and to hear how things are progressing within your organisation. And of course, James, as always, thank you for your support for this. But it's really great.
Pleasure.
And yes, enjoy the rest of the summer.